Hello, it is our fourth and final installment of our high altitude cooking series. I'm Mindy Turner with the Curry County Cooperative Extension Office, your Family and Consumer Science Agent. Cooperative Extension is a service of New Mexico State University, bringing the resources and educational value from the university out to the public. So I am here, I am in Clovis. We are at 818 North Main, or you can give us a call, 763-6505. Any of the resources that I share with you, you're welcome to follow up with us and we will be glad to get those to you. So we've been talking about high altitude, which we determined all of the state of New Mexico is considered high altitude when it comes to cooking and how we need to adjust and adapt our recipes. We talked about the foods we cook with moisture. We talked about baking specifically. We talked about confectionery things such as frosting and candy and what we needed to do for that. So we're just kind of rounding it out, finishing off that baking piece to get a little bit more of a visual on exactly what happens and the difference that we're dealing with. Now, I've shared two excellent resources with you. All of this information comes from one of our extension guides, E215. It is our high altitude cooking by some of our specialists and expert agents in that area. We also have a publication that is specifically cakes, recipes, and mixes for high altitude in the state of New Mexico. So that's a fantastic resource for you to have as a baker to make sure that everything is already adapted for you and you don't have to do all the math. So as we look at the way things turn out, we talked a lot last time about what you can do to actually help with your baking when things aren't turning out the way you want. We talked about the oven temperature and adapting the sugar. This time we're going to specifically look at some different cookies just to give you that visual idea of what difference it makes and how the altitude where we are can affect that recipe. But also just freeing of the fact that we don't have to follow letter for letter exactly what is on there. And so that's one of the things I wanted to be sure and mention. A lot of recipes, particularly when we talk about cookies, pies, cakes, things like that, and we've talked about the chemistry of it and how there's certain ingredients we need and have to have, a lot of them require a lot more fat than maybe we necessarily need, and that's a place that we can pull back and make some adjustments. So instead of adding more flour or additional flour, maybe we just use a little bit less of that egg or that butter or that fat that we're adding into that particular recipe. So again, these charts are available in this month's newsletter from the Curry County Extension Office. If you would like to sign up to receive that, curryextension.nmsu.edu, click on Family Health and Wellness. That will give you an option to sign up for our newsletter. You can get it over email. You can get a hard copy in your mail, so right to your door. Or if you just give us a call, we'll get you all signed up for that at our office. So all of this information is there, or like I said, it comes from those extension publications, which you can find online, or again, request from us at the office, and we will get those out to you. So some of the basic, and we talked a little bit last time too about leavening, I can't get the word out, ingredients. So the things that make it poofy and puffy and make it baking, basically, and how those are affected by high altitude, by the difference in the barometric pressure and all of those types of things. So this table specifically looks at the basic adjustments for your leavening, your sugar, your liquid, and then of course your wheat flours when you're baking at a high altitude. So with baking powder, for each teaspoon, you're going to want to decrease it for where we are. Again, we're going to look at that right around that 5,000 feet range. And so we're going to decrease it by 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon, whatever works the best for us. This chart also talks about 3,000 feet and 7,000 feet. We're kind of in that middle spot. We talked the first time about the elevations around Curry County. So we're ranging from that 4,100 to about 47, 48, not 100,000 feet in our elevations. Sugar, same thing. You can decrease it by the tablespoons per cup. Okay, and we talked a little bit about that last time, but so we might take out up to 2 tablespoons of sugar per cup for a recipe. And then with our liquids, for each cup, you are going to add, okay? Remember, we're going to let off some of the leavening and the things that pop but we're gonna add a little extra liquid to accommodate that evaporation that happens more quickly because our boiling point is lower, happens more quickly at our elevations. So we're gonna add a tablespoon for each cup. And actually in our range, it's gonna be anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons to kind of get that what you want. Most of us know as we bake and make different things, we get a feel for, oh yeah, that's how that dough should look. That's what that batter should be like. So you can look and make those adjustments. You don't have to bake it and then go, oh, that's not what I wanted. You can look before it's ever cooked and see the difference in the dough or the baking item that you're making. And then with your wheat flours, now again, gluten-free flours and high protein flours and some of the other things, you're gonna adapt those differently or have a different type of recipe for that. But with our general wheat all-purpose flours, you're gonna wanna add maybe 2 tablespoons. Okay, now that's to the whole recipe. That's not per cup. You don't wanna dry it out too much. So I pulled together what I wanted to show you, just kind of an example of how you can adapt and change a recipe. Now I just use, these are store-bought mixes for chocolate chip cookies. The brand doesn't matter. This is what was on sale. Okay, the concept is the same. I could not find on this packaging where it actually talks about adapting it for high altitude. Now this particular package calls for half a cup of butter, so 1 stick of butter and 1 egg. And then the contents of this package. And you mix all that together, bake it, and that's what makes your cookies. So I made these. We made a whole bunch of them to put in snack bags for school. And I was not happy with how they spread out and they made a flatter cookie. Now, one way we learned last time that we can adapt for that is we can up our temperature for cooking so that it sets faster and it doesn't spread as much. So this time, this is, there we go, made exactly as the package directs. It's 1 package of the mix, 1 egg, and a stick of butter. So half a cup of butter in there, all mixed up together. It's pretty, almost Play-Doh-like. It sticks together really well, but it is still a little bit sticky. Okay, when you touch it, it feels a little wet. You can see it looks a little wetter. So when I baked these, this time I did up the temperature a little and I tried to watch my time. My oven cooks a little hot anyway. So I was watching the time on it and they still spread more than I wanted. Okay, so it still made a little flatter cookie. Nothing wrong with this cookie. It's gonna taste great. It's just a little flatter than maybe what I would normally want. Okay, if you're worried about your cookies getting too hard, because we just talked about that moisture and keeping that in there, throw them in that airtight container with a piece of bread, a couple crackers, and they'll soften right up. So that's a good tip to remember when you look at your cookies. So now this batch is still an egg, 1 egg, and 1 stick of butter because it's really hard to half an egg. So I wanted to kind of see about maybe if I half what I want to put in there. But I used 1 package, the egg, the stick of butter, and then about half of an additional package. Instead of just adding a few tablespoons of flour to it, I went ahead and just used additional mix. So now this it's quite a bit drier. You have to work a little harder to push it, to stick it together. You can see it doesn't look as wet. It's a lighter color. And then I just used, for both of these, I used a cookie scoop. I don't fill mine full. I get it about 3/4 full, put it tight, and then let those out. I cooked them on the exact same pan in the oven for the same amount of time so I could have a really good close comparison. So for that, my second set of cookies stayed much higher. So it's much puffier. So this is more what I wanted from my cookie. The other piece of that is this is less of your fats because it's less butter and less egg than in the original one. So being able to adapt that recipe, to look at it, to decide, hey, how do I want it? Whether it's because of the altitude, because of the fat content, it's gonna make a big difference in the quality of the items that you're trying to bake, particularly when you wanna give those as gifts or you're taking a whole set out to someone to share. So you can see side by side that there is just a difference. in those cookies and how they're put in. Okay, and so then just a quick reminder, most of your recipes, most of your packaging is going to tell you the different time frames to use for cooking with different types of pans. So of course your non-stick pans, your metal pans. When you are talking about a glass pan, that does not conduct heat as efficiently as a metal pan. So you may have to have a little longer cooking time for that than you do with your metal pans. So just think about, what is it you like? What is it that you want it to be? Why does mine not turn out like my grandma's? There's probably an adaptation you could make so that it will. We live in New Mexico. We live in Curry County. We are high altitude, but we can adapt for that. We can adjust. If you need help figuring out how to do that, give us a call at the County Extension Office. Thank you for joining me for this series. Again, it was a 4-part series on high altitude cooking, and I hope you will reach out and enjoy some of the resources we have to offer.